told Thomas to put his fingers in his hand. So, I mean, that's a good question. But in the Old Testament, when he showed up, it was, that's when they use the term theophany. He showed up with Jacob when he wrestled with God. A lot of times it'll say the angel of the Lord. He showed up with Abraham as Melchizedek, the high priest. Who else did he show up to? Of course, Moses, that was different. Moses' experience on Mount Sinai and stuff like that, when he received the tablets, and God said, I'll put you in the cleft of the rock and I'll walk past, and you can look at my hand. You can't look at me, but you can look at my, you can look at the passing of my glory. Right. That was a little bit different as far as he showed up to Adam and Eve. Right. So that's a good question. How many times, hey Siri, how many times did God show up in the Old Testament? All right. Did God ever take on physical form? He appeared to Hagar in Genesis 16. Hagar was Abraham's mistress, that's right. The mother of Ishmael. He showed up to her and told her to leave and that he would take care of her. He appeared to Abraham and Sarah. He appeared again to Abraham on Mount Moriah. He appeared to Jacob. That's when he wrestled with God. Appeared to Moses in a burning bush. That burning bush doesn't. It was a physical experience. Right. I'll say that. It wasn't. He didn't show up as a person. There was the burning bush, and he spoke. He could hear an audible voice. God appeared to Gideon. I don't know. That one's kind of. That could have been an angel. You know, the Bible. Sometimes it says the angel of the Lord. And you kind of have to read the whole thing to find out, was it the Lord? And it really kind of is the people's response. You have to kind of see the interaction that goes on. I don't know. I think Gideon was more of a messenger. Could have been just an angel.
I know I was reading, I forgot what passage I was in, but he also.
But a lot of times when it says the angel of the Lord, right, many times that is a theophany, that is God appearing.
What do you think about the guys that went to Sodom? I think to
Lot.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Would they be considered God? Were they God or were they an angel?
Yeah, those were angels. Those are definitely angels. God, I mean, it says that God sent angels there to warn them. And, yeah. You know, God, even like in some of these near-death experiences and in your dreams and things like that, God will relate to you how you understand, because ultimately the purpose of communication is understanding. Now listen, write that down, because that's not, don't take that for granted. The purpose of communication is understanding. I have students all the time say, well, I said this, or they said whatever, but if it wasn't understood, then there was no communication. If it wasn't heard, it doesn't matter. This is why we say don't have any hallway conversations. Don't stop Tracy or April or me or whatever when we're on the way from the cash register to the back of the store and go, hey, I just wanted to tell you about, can I have off? And my daughter's coming and in town, and I gotta and we're like, I gotta pee right now, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, yeah, well. And then like 3 weeks later, oh, I told you that blah, blah, blah. That wasn't communication. There was no understanding happening in that moment. You might have been talking, but there was no understanding. If there's miscommunication, then it's not communication. Do you understand? You can be thinking, I'm talking about one thing. My wife all the time just, in the middle of a conversation, and I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like what, I'm thinking she's talking about the lake house, and she's talking about this other house. And she'll go on for, she'll have half of everything that she wants to say out her mouth. And I'm imagining and picturing a whole nother place or a whole nother job. And then I'm like, stop. Now, if I would have just walked away and been like, okay. And then whatever she wanted to happen wouldn't happen. Or if somebody says, hey, I'll meet you at 10 o'clock, a.m., p.m., tomorrow, whatever. And I'm sure that's happened to all of us, right? We're like, no, that was today. I was meeting you today. Oh, I thought you were talking about tomorrow. Guess what? There was no communication. There was talking, but if there wasn't understanding, there's not communication. Okay? The point of communication is understanding. So you need to make sure that you're understood. Now, here's the thing. Most of us, we like to live in this world of misunderstanding. We think we're CYA because we said something. But the whole time you knew you were just kind of saying it, and you didn't want it to be fully understood. You didn't want a deep dive into, whoa, wait a second, why, and why, and how, and what it's all the, no. You don't want to. You're throwing enough out there so later, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, you can go, nuh-uh, I said something. No, or I told you. And it's like, wait a second, you left out a whole lot. And you're like, you said I'm going to my sister's, but you didn't say that, your sister lived at Myrtle Beach and you were going to stay there for 10 days. And while you were down there, your girlfriend or your boyfriend was coming over and that they have drug issues and blah, blah, blah. You didn't say all that. You're like, hey, can I go hang out with my sister? You know what I'm saying? And it's fully intended to not be understood all the everything. But communication is not communication unless it's understood. If I say something and I'm not heard, it's as if nothing was ever said. I have to tell this to the baristas or whatever. It's like, if I didn't hear you or the customer can't hear you, you need to speak up and be perky and say it this way. Because if you don't, morning. What would you like to eat?
What are you saying?
Yeah, like they're looking at the menu, they're standing 10 feet back, and you're gonna argue with me and say, oh, I said something. I was doing my no. If they can't hear you, right? Or if you say, oh, someone's clear in the back of the shop. I'm leaving now. Can I go take my break? And they can't hear you. They're talking to other people. Horns are honking. The door's open. People are talking. I told you I was going on break. What's the big deal? When they're looking, they're hunting around for you for, 15, 20 minutes. Where is he? Where is she? You failed to communicate. And you're going to stand there. I know you're going to stand there and argue. I said something. You did, but you weren't heard. You weren't heard. Well, it's not my... Yes, it is your responsibility. Because you are the communicator. If you're initiating communication, it is absolutely incumbent on you to make sure that whatever it is you're communicating is heard and understood. And if it's misunderstood, it's your fault. It's your fault because you initiated the conversation. That person wasn't thinking about you, wasn't thinking about your subject, wasn't thinking about your whatever it is you wanted to talk about. So if there's any misunderstanding, it's your fault. And you need to evaluate, why was I misunderstood? Do I mumble? Did I not give enough detail? Did I rush the conversation? Did I have their full attention? Right? If you're initiating a conversation and you don't have the person's full attention, maybe your timing is off. Maybe now's not the best time to talk to them. They got 10 things going on and they're headed out the door. All right? Text is great. I like to text stuff now. Just because it's like, Did you read what I said? Because I'm going to put details in there, and you can go back, and if you read it, you wouldn't misunderstand it. Right? Like, this is, sometimes the text is my proof that I communicated it exactly. Remember with the guys, I'm like, I think I used this analogy before. I told them, I said, listen, I want you to go ahead and take the toilet from the upstairs bathroom and this other bathroom, blah, blah, blah. We're replacing those two toilets up there. Well, there's a bathroom downstairs. What do you think they did? They pulled the toilet from the first bathroom they walked past, went in, disconnected it, pulled it, took it out, and then there was no toilets in the house. And I said, did you read the text? Because it says, the upstairs bathroom on the right and and the other bathroom that is upstairs. I never said anything about a downstairs bathroom. So back to the thing, the theophany. You know, biblical principles and stuff that happen in the Bible are exactly, I mean, it's everyday life too. You know, like we're talking about everyday life now, but we came from the subject of a messenger, and I came from the subject of saying, like people when they have near-death experiences, sometimes you have dreams, sometimes even if you have a vision, God is going to speak to you in a way that you can understand. And He's going to show you things that have meaning to you. Might not have meaning to anybody else. You know, and you don't make a theology or a doctrine out of it. It's God communicating to you. Like if you loved horses, or you loved dogs, or you loved, you know, or you know, if you lived in South Central LA versus Kansas, you know, Emporia, Kansas, and I wanted to communicate to you, I wouldn't speak to a young man who was raised in Compton. I wouldn't use analogies like, you know, the bit and the bridle in the horse's mouth, and then you cinch the, you know, thing underneath the horse, and if it's not tight, you're going to get thrown off because it has to be bound tight, right? I'm not gonna do that. You know, I'm gonna use a different analogy for the young man who grew up in the hood, you know, and the stuff that he has to deal with, so he can relate to it. You know, so God's going to show up to you because why? Because communication without understanding isn't communication. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I had a dream and it was like da 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 da," and it might, you know, to somebody else, it might not have any meaning at all. Like they have no understanding of it. But to you it has meaning. If you had a vision of heaven, I'll just tell you right now, there's a lot of similarities with people who have died and gone to heaven, but a lot of it is very human, like God. Like if you saw stuff that is actually happening in the spirit realm, and you actually saw stuff from heaven, just like when you read Revelations, okay? Like he's trying to describe something he's never seen. Like, how do you describe something you've never seen? You compare it to, like if John saw the end of times, and he says, I think there's some descriptions, he says, and a scorpion, that had stingers that came out of its tail, and it burned up a third of the people. He's then we're like, a scorpion, right? Well, I mean, if you'd never seen a helicopter shooting a missile, that just annihilated half of the earth, you might say, or you say a plague of locusts. When these helicopters, and it says, it just devastated, the whole earth. Oh. Yeah. Why? How's someone who's never seen an airplane or a helicopter or a missile ever going to describe it? They're going to say, like, these locusts that had, stingers that they could shoot and it burnt people. Sounds like a pretty good, analogy. But so God will, the things of the Spirit are so, like we can only relate to them with our earthly mind. We kind of have to dumb everything down. Like there's inexplainable things. A lot of people, so when you know that, like, in heaven there is no death. There's no death. And now the Bible says the wages of sin is death. See, we hear the term death and we think, if I say dead, a person is dead, most of us in this room have a vision of a casket, this dead body, this lifeless, whatever, grave, right? We have all of these mental pictures that we would associate with that. But that's not death. Death, the wages of sin is death. Death is all toxin, all pollution, all taking of life. Okay, or you can write this down. The definition of death is the diminishment of life. So you have life over here on this side of if you had a graph of life and death. And life, in God's term, life is 100% life. If the definition of death is the diminishment of life, then if you had 0.5% of life taken from you, right? That was death snuck in, took 0.5%. Now you're at 99.5. And death sneaks in and he takes another 0.5%. And then one day he comes in and he gobbles up 3%. Now you're down to like 96%. What's happening? You are dying. Do you understand? The wages of sin is death. So you make a mistake, guess what? Death comes in. Death now has access to your life. By law. By law. It's a wage. Do you understand? Death's got to get paid. It's an agreement in the natural order of things. Be in the moment. Be where you are. Death has a right, a legal right to take life. Because you did not make a decision for life. You sinned. You made a decision for death. And so a lot of us think, oh, this isn't going to... No. You think because you don't go into the grave that you cheated death. No, you didn't. You did not cheat death at all. You did not escape. No one escapes. See, that would make the Bible a lie. God doesn't lie. The wages of sin is death. So if you thought about it in the terms of just your physical health, okay? And again, this isn't hell. This isn't heaven, hell. This isn't right or wrong, okay? But health. If you think of, let's take God out of the equation, and we'll just use health, a natural thing, biological health. Guess what? There's decisions you can make that will promote life, longevity, vitality. And then there's things that you choose that produce disease and all the other stuff. Death, diabetes, you name them. Right? High blood pressure. Listen, every disease that we would like, oh no, I have a predisposition. No, it runs in my family. You know why it runs in your family? Is because you taught it to your daughter. You grew up eating that kind of food, and now you like that kind of food. And then you're going to teach it to your children, and you're going to teach it, and the way, listen, we are all products of the previous generation taught us. We were taught this. More is caught than taught, meaning the environment teaches us this stuff. When you're 5 years old, I say this all the time. One of the worst days of the month in an impoverished community is the first few days of the month. It's the worst. Now, they don't think so, but, little Johnny's going to be handed, an EBT card, and just go down to the corner store, grab you, and he's going to think this is the best thing that ever happened. I can't wait till the first. You tell me. 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they all know when the first of the month is. Because they're going to be able to get their juicy pops, and they're going to be able to get their nabs, and they're going to be able to get all this and that. Now they grow up wishing and hoping and thinking, and now they're thinking, man, can't wait till I get old enough to have my own. No one told them you have to be poor. No one told them, guess what? You can have this EBT card, just be poor the rest of your life. They're growing up thinking this is the best thing. This is the best thing. Why? Because they're hungry. No one's teaching them. They're learning though. They're learning. Mom will take them in and just tell them you're nervous all the time. You're anxious. Let's get you a check. They're learning. They're learning. This psychiatrist will do this and that, and we'll label you, and we can get more money. First of the month will be even better. Just lie. Say whatever you got to say. Don't tell them about Big Mike coming over. Shh. We got to keep our housing. And they're learning. And they're learning. What are they learning? They're learning the ways of death. Learning the ways of poverty. Learning how the way that, you know what? Listen, the government can take all your purpose, all your potential, all your hopes, all your dreams and your destinies, and they'll give you a little something, just enough to survive. And the only thing you got to trade is your purpose, your destiny, your dreams. Just give it all up to get that little check and keep a roof over your head. And people will lie to get it. And guess what? The wages of lying is what? Death. But it goes right into your health, decisions, everything. It's not, let me even say this, we'll spin this off. How do we get from theophanies to this? The generational curses they're not spooky, mystical, like some voodoo dust was sprinkled over you. And you got to go through some ritual to break off some generational curse. Generational curse is what I just explained to you. Is a parent teaching their kid something that's wrong. And their kid growing up thinking this is right and this is normal. It's a generational curse. Right down to sexual abuse and everything like that. Is because there was an environment that was set and you lived in it and you couldn't escape the environment, and that generation grew up in that environment where people touched one another and did something, whatever, and so now that's on them, that's on their mind, and they're thinking, oh, this is what you do with your sexual desires, and if there's a little kid there, just act it out on them. They're too weak to do nothing. And it's perpetuated. It's perpetuated because it happened to them. It was taught to them. They saw it. Anger. I was taught impatientness, anger, explosive, from my father. When you see something exampled in front of you every day by the big people in your life, there's one thought that goes through a kid's mind all the time, every day. All the time, every day. One thought. Wow, I can't wait till I get big and I can do that. Now, you put them in a, I can remember as a kid, like the men in my family, and stuff like that. And I had bunch of boy cousins and stuff like that. And so like they were in the cars. Duh. I have a generational curse of being in the cars. Why? I grew up around it. It was like, oh, how long did it take you to get here? And all the cousins come out, wow, look at the new car that I got. And, yeah, I just got dual exhaust on it. Look at what I'm tinkering on here. Yeah, we found that we pulled this motorcycle out of the trash. I think it just needs a carburetor on it. And you know what? As a kid, I'm thinking, wow, can't wait till when I get big, I can do that. You know what I do? I collect junk cars and I pull stuff out of the trash and I work on it, and I got more crappy, broke down stuff that I'm going to fix up and soup up and make fancy and pretty. Right? But it works that way with literally everything. If your kid is watching you on the deck with the adults and your cousins and your friends and you're hitting the joint and no, not you, put it away. They saw it. They see it. They smell it. It's another thing. It's incredible. Like people who smoke, I don't care if it's cigarettes, weed, or whatever. It's like, trust me, you don't know. Like, we can smell it. Okay? You can't smell it because that's your normal. You just think, no. And little kids can smell it. You think you're hiding something. You ain't hiding something. Why? Because it's the environment you have set. Like they live in it 24/7.
You saying that, I remember growing up, my mom's side was always churchy, grandma and them. Dad's side was wild. All the guys, a lot of cousins on my dad's side, older women, smoking.
Yeah.
Fun to me at that time, the ladies having fun. So when it was time to go to grandma's and with mom, I'm crying and I want to stay out here with dad and just be around my granddad on his side, just because of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
It was attractive. You see your older cousins riding around in these fancy cars and stuff. It kind of drew me and my brother into going that way.
Absolutely.
Going the opposite way.
Absolutely. And again, that's the generational curse. The generational curse is that children are being taught all the time. All the time. And so whatever is happening in one generation, so there's a saying, you can write this down. What one generation permits, what one generation permits, what one generation permits, the next generation does in excess.
And Pastor, what I want to ask is, and even the way you explain it, because I had it in mind too, should it really be called a worldly curse instead of generation curse on any such as food, the streets, or anything?
Yeah.
The real reason I had to ask that, perfect example, back on the food part, and you explained this even on Sunday. Without the race thing, let's say a Catholic church family, whether you're white, black, or whatever, great growing up eating fruits, vegetables, the healthy thing.
Yeah.
The projects, eating all the junk food is right across the street, but let's say right in the middle of the corner, you see the gas station, which is where the candy is at. So it's like the project kids see the candy, the Catholic kids see the candy, but here's the thing, the Catholic kids, no, they don't hang around with the project kids, but because they go to the same gas station or store, now they want to start eating candy.
Yeah.
They didn't come from the Catholic family, because the Catholic family eats healthy. It came from the candy store or that gas station. So should the world be just as excluded than the generational curse?
Well, it's generational because it's what I just said. A parent permits something, and they don't understand what one generation permits, the next generation will do in excess. Okay? Everything escalates. Okay? If it's something that is negative, it escalates negatively. You understand? I had somebody said, "Oh no, I can man." I remember talking to a young man who was coming out of court, and he was like, "Oh," how I met him was I had a building down here on Grove Avenue. Depending on how old you are, some of you might have went to some parties there. I had an abandoned. It wasn't abandoned. I wasn't using the building. I'd go down there maybe, once every 3 weeks or something, right? Well, when I wasn't down there, there's this young entrepreneurial man who was throwing parties in my building. Charging at the door, all the red cups, and send out a text, and boo, 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 this is where it's going to be, taking, he had a whole system. And I get called one night, the police are call me, is this your building, blah, blah, blah. There was just 70, 80 people down there that we had to run out and arrest, the other thing. So I meet this young man. And I just, I start talking. I'm like, dude, you got so much, potential, And he was telling me a little bit about his life and, some other trouble that he had gotten into and everything, and that, the courts were working with him and everything, and I think he said he had his grandma, was maybe a good lady who was, a church grandma and everything, but everything else in his family was just, mess. And so actually, yeah, that's how it played out. I got him to do community service under my supervision. So he had to do community service with me, and so I would usually see him once a week or something. It wasn't a whole lot of hours, maybe 40 hours, But, and he was he was telling me how he was managing. And I'm like, young man, you don't manage sin. There's nobody that manages sin. What you're talking about is saying, "Oh, I got this under control." And I'm like, no. No. That's the illusion that sin will give you until, you have it. This is sin. You have it under control until you don't. And you don't know when that you don't. You know what I'm saying? You think that you have it under control, but if you have it under control, then how suddenly have you lost control? How suddenly does it have you? How suddenly, just in a matter of a day, 2 days, a week, how did you go from doing this for a year, doing this for 6 months, doing everything is okay, to suddenly everything is crap? It didn't. It didn't. Did you hear me? It didn't happen that way. It was taking you, the wage of sin was taking 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%. You just didn't notice it until you were half dead. And then it got to be where, oh, now I have less life than I have more death than I have life. Do you understand? The wages of sin is death. You don't manage that. And it will always get its pay. It will always get its wage. Always. Why? That is a spiritual law. That is a principle of the universe. And you're not fighting Mother Nature, and you're not winning a battle against God or the devil. And the devil has, I mean, if you want to say, he has a contractual agreement. This is how it works. Human sin, I get to take life from them as a consequence. Now, see, here's the thing about that is he gets 1% in our finances because we make a bad financial decision. Then he gets 2% over here in our health because we make stupid health choices and everything. And then he gets another, a big chunk, 15%, because we make stupid decisions in our relationships. So, this is the other thing. See, you think, oh, my money, it was just $5. It was just $20. It's not like I'm back out here dropping, $400 a day. I'm not stealing. I'm just, it's just. No, trust me. He's going to get it here. He's going to get some there. And then he's going to get some more over here. And before you know it, you're going to be like, and I feel like crap. My life is crap. I can't get any traction. I can't ever get ahead. And you look across the spectrum, and is it because you made this one huge horrible decision about probably not. You made a 15% bad choice over here in a relationship, and you made a 5% bad choice over here. You were disobeyed. So now let's bring it back into God. Now you disobey God 5% over here. See, and the whole time you're thinking, yeah, but 95%, I'm good. 95%, I'm good. Yeah, but you're going to make a 20% chunk. You're going to lose a 20% chunk over here on a relationship. And that 20% chunk, guess what, is also going to demand now that you pay. You dip into your finances to support that bad decision. And then she's going to want ice cream. Well, there's a bad health choice. Or they're going to tempt you to do something with your body and violate your body. And now death comes creeping with a disease, a this, a that, and that. He's going to get paid. And then you're going to wake up and go, But it wasn't like I didn't reckon, like it just, yeah, no, add it all up. Add it all up. Do the math. This is why, see, you think that God, and then Regenesis, and then you think the leaders at Regenesis are crazy, whacked out people that are just want to control every little aspect of your life. No, we break this down to this level to where you're like at zero, like where you can see, like, so that you understand. No, listen, if you can manage, if you can stop smoking cigarettes, which is not a sin, but it's a bad choice for your health. It's a bad choice for your finances. I mean, I think Neil is the only one who's wealthy in the room, and he's not here anymore. And he just wants to be a hippie.
Pastor, that's another thing too. Even listening to that, like you was talking about the cigarettes earlier when you was talking about with the kids too. If you feel that if you feel like your kids shouldn't know what you're doing and stuff on the high part, should you at least tell them the truth? Like, for example, you're smoking a cigarette in front of your child or in front of a group of kids, instead of just telling them, oh, I'm just smoking a cigarette because I'm grown, just tell them, you don't want to do what I'm doing because by the time you're my age, you might not make. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. No, you need to advise them not to do what you're doing. But, again, you're going to wonder why your kids, right? That's the it passes on to them. Because again, they have one thought going through their head. It doesn't matter what you say. Their thought is, when I get big, that's what I want to do. I got 3 speeding tickets in the past 9 days. Well, no. One was I went through a stop sign. 2 speeding tickets and just went through a stop sign. Where do you think that came from? That's a generational curse right there. It's me just like, I love I'm going to drive. We're going to see how fast we can get there so I can stand in the driveway and go, how long did it take? Oh, I cut 5. That's the best time I ever made on this trip, I went from here to Richmond. It only took me 30 minutes. Well, 28. Next time I'll get it under. Hit that little bit of traffic. But you know what? If I get off on Maury Street and I blow through some red lights and some stop signs, I can beat this. Like, it's in me. I can't help it. Why? Because when I was 4, 5, and 6, I was like, ooh, yeah. Let me get behind a wheel, But that's all of us, So like I said, you can tell your kid don't do this, don't do that, but you're not going to stop that thought. When I get big, I want to be. A kid watches you tie your shoe. When you're tying a child's shoe, you know what they're thinking? Wow, I can't do that, but you're big. Wow. I want to be like you. You understand? It could be the most horrible, abusive person in the world. A kid don't know that. A kid does not know that. All he knows is, wow, you can tie shoes? Whoa. I can't do that. Wow. You can feed yourself. Man, I have to drink out of a sippy cup. I'm still drinking out of a sippy cup.
You think maybe that's why a lot of athletes...
When I get big, though, this lid's coming off, and I'm taking gulps.
Pastor, you think maybe rappers today get a lot of attention from kids rappers, from Little Dirt to
Oh,
John
yeah,
Cena.
yeah.
You think that's the reason? Wow, listen to this rapper. I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
say what this rapper.
Absolutely.
Look at this wrestler. I want to say what this wrestler just said.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We grow up, it's in our nature to idolize. Think of that word, idolize. You know, God says don't have any idols, don't bear false images or have idols, you know, whatever. But that's in our nature to go, wow, to admire and idolize and put, and as a kid, a child has no frame of reference to where to put his worship. A kid has no frame of reference what is good to admire, what is not good to admire. They just admire everything that's big, and they see stuff that's happening around them, and they can't do it. They can't reach. They can't get the stuff off the table. They have to have this big person come and boost them up. Wow, you boosted me up so I could reach that cupcake. And everything in that child's mind is like, whoa. Listen, this is true. Neurons and electrons and brain waves are being soldered together. Bridges are being made from the frontal cortex of your brain to the back, to the sympathetic nerves, from your right and left brain, from creativity to analytical, and they're being formed. Bridges from right to left side of the brain. One side of the brain is analytical and complex and problem solving, and the other side of the brain is creativity and beauty and emotion and everything like that, and they have to connect. And you got the front of the brain going back to the, so all of these things are being developed, pathways, neurological pathways, just like the cut through in the hood. We can go down here, or we can walk on the sidewalk all the way down here, take a hard right, stay on the sidewalk, but nobody does that. Why? Because your bigger brother taught you a cut through. You go down through the cut, cross over the railroad track, through the woods, boom, you're there. That's the way we do it. And then what is there? There's a well-beaten path. Well-beaten path there. And you're told you're crazy if you don't go this way. Why do it that way? This is a shortcut. So your brain, a child's brain, is creating all these pathways. And by the age of 6 to 8 years old, those pathways are already worn. That brain wave is going to fire on that path every time. When it gets to that point in that street corner, even if it's unsafe to go that way, it doesn't matter. This is the way we go. And that, oh wow, you boosted me up. Oh, you get angry? Oh, you get angry when that happens? Wow, I'm going to get angry when it happens to me too. Your response is to be impatient, and your response is to be harsh and everything. I guess that's how we do it when we get big. That's how I'm going to do it when I get big. Again, it's It's absolutely 100%. That pathway is being made. That's the generational curse. It's not that somebody spoke some voodoo over you and now you're locked in. No, you're locked in because your brain has a mindset now that was taught to you. The sins of your father have been taught to you by the father. And the wrong ways of cooking, smoking, health, the wrong things to do with your finances. We buy, our generation, we bought tapes and CDs and it was probably in the 90s where expensive tennis shoes became the thing, and kids started getting ridiculed in school for not having, you don't have good tennis shoes, or you don't have this or that, or if you did get them, then you might get mugged or bullied, stolen from you or whatever, and everybody just had to, well, guess what? Now footwear, people are just, they can't afford whatever. They're renting. They don't have their own home, but they got boxes of $200, $300 shoes in their closet, Section 8. What? They got their hats still with the labels and everything on it. What? But they got fines they haven't paid for. They got kids they can't support. They got blah 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 blah. But they got this. We got nice cars. Yeah, and no home. We don't have no asset. Don't have an asset. Nothing that appreciates, everything that depreciates. Why? Because everything increases or decreases, and in one sense, it's the decrease is increasing, if that makes sense. Things that are negative get worse. Nothing like negative things don't get better. They don't. Things that have an origin. This is powerful because this is universal. You can't start out wrong, or you're not going to take something that was wrong and bad and make it good and make it right. Like, you understand? Like, you can paint a pig, it's a pig. You can polish a turd, it's a turd. You can put all this effort into it, but you know what? It was wrong to start. It was sin to start. And listen, even when you start understanding this in the core of who you are, listen to what I'm about to say. In the core of who you are, this is why God says this. God says, man judges the outward appearance. I judge the heart. And he says, and the Holy Spirit searches the intents and motivations of the heart. What is that? The origin, the beginning. Where did this thing begin? If it began bad, if it was born out of lust, and it was born out of this, and it was born out of that, and it was born out of all of this like negative thing, and then you think somehow magically one day you're going to wake up and it's going to be, no. Because, again, if God judges something, from the heart, from the intent, and from the origin, then it's been judged. This is why you have to be, this is why you have to, I talk about being self-aware is like the greatest thing you can ever be. Don't bullshit yourself. See, you're trying to justify, listen, we all do it. We're trying to justify, we're trying to minimize, we're trying to spin it. But there's no amount of spin, there's no amount of justification, there's no amount of yeah, but, and just wait. Come on. If you can get the ability to strip everything away, to strip all of the, okay, so here's, love and God is very simple. Very, very simple. The enemy of your purpose, your life, and your soul is going to try to complicate things. Write this down. The lie, you could say the lie, the trick, the snare, the trap. The lie, the trick, the snare, the trap is hidden. The lie, the trick, the snare, the trap is hidden in the complexity. See, when you tell a lie, like you gotta create all these moving parts. Like if you just came out and said it, just said it, say it for what it is, how you feel, what it is, blah blah blah. But you're not gonna. Well, it happened this way, and then blah blah blah, and then there's like this whole complexity, and there's these moving parts. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to hide with all this dirt. If I throw enough dirt on this, and I throw it up in the air and make a dust cloud and everything like that, then maybe it won't be seen for what it really is. All right? I just felt like F you. But I ain't going to say that. I'm going to create a story. It's going to be complex. It's going to have a little truth in it, and we're going to mix a little this, and we're going to take some light from over here and some darkness from over there, and a little truth from back here, and then we're going to talk about our health. Oh, keep it simple. You woke up 4 o'clock. Keep it Rick. Keep it Rick real. Tell you about Rick. I used to like Rick. Old Rick. Had him working for me. I remember pulling off the exit one day, and my son was asking me, like, man, I really need a painter to help me paint. I got all this painting that needs done on these properties and stuff. And I pull off the exit on 95, and there's Rick holding a sign, begging. And I said, Joe, believe it or not, I said, that guy right there is probably one of the best painters you'll ever meet. So we engaged Rick back in our life. I used to give him rides to work. We worked at the same, we did industrial painting in the plant. And anyways, but now he's standing on the street corner holding a sign. He had a house that was paid for. It was left to by his mama, so it was like he'd walk down to the street corner, beg for some money. He didn't need a whole lot to get by because his house was paid for, and he'd have other people come over and party with him, and they'd bring food and stuff like that. So Anyway, so Rick. But Rick, so I have Rick, and I'll use somebody else's name, and I had Bobby. Okay? Now, Bobby, I call Bobby in the morning. Oh, man, let me tell you. They were shooting guns in my neighborhood last night, and I didn't get any sleep, and I think I got this, sinuses are acting up, and the sciatica, and then, guess what? You'll never else believe. A hawk swooped down and got in the pigeon coop, and Jimmy and Michael, that's their precious little thing. And, so I had to stay up. I was picking up feathers all night. I'm just not going to, let me tell you, I'm just not going to be able to make it into work today. That's Bobby. Rick, call Rick up. Rick, making it to work today. I'm going to be by there at 7. Oh, man. I woke up at 4 o'clock to take a crap. Looked out the window. It was raining. I'm already halfway into a fifth. I am too messed up. I am too messed up to work today. I'm like, but Rick, it stopped raining like at 5 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock now. We're good to go. I'm tore up. Now, I love Rick. Appreciate Rick. Love him to this day. Like, seriously. Like, the dude was just, he kept it simple. This is what it is. Now, with Bobby, it was the exact same thing. But he was going to throw some dirt on it. He's going to make it complicated. The lie, the trick, the snare, the trap is in the complexity. The devil will always do that. He's always going to twist things to try to get, that's what he did with Eve. He doesn't have any different tricks. And that's what we do. We do the same thing. We're going to, but when you become self-aware and you can break something down to its most simplest. See, they were always trying to get Jesus to wanted to talk about the complicated stuff. What about divorce? And what about her? And it brought her out, and it says we should stone her and everything like that, and blah, 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 right? Stone the woman caught in adultery. Jesus kept it simple. Well, you want to throw a stone? I guess you can, as long as you don't have any sin in your life. Become self-aware, right? Become so self-aware that you don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Call a bad choice a bad choice, and then try to work with it. Again, we're not on this smoking thing and all this and that, and because you're going to go to hell. No, you can't afford it, and you haven't done the math. You haven't done the math, because you could have a $2,500 car. Just stop smoking, because that's how much you spend in smoke a year. It's $2,500. I bought my first investment house, but guess what? I didn't have cable. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have sodas and Twinkies, and didn't have any of that. But guess what? If I could scrounge up by not having cable and not having all that stuff, I could scrounge up an extra $300, $400, $500 a month. I could put it into an investment property. See, and then in 5 years, 10 years, you're going to be like, hey, why is he? No. I made a choice. Not to smoke, I'm not spending money on cigarettes, I'm not spending money on alcohol, I'm not spending money on dope, I'm not spending money on Twinkies, I'm not spending money on Mountain Dews, Monster drinks, I'm not spending any money on that stuff. I put it into an investment. I didn't spend money on a cell phone, you know what I'm saying? Didn't have cable, didn't have apps and streaming this and didn't have it. But I had a rental property. Bad choices bring death, bring negativity. You know, and you're gonna pay for that smoke. You're gonna pay for that Twinkie. You're gonna pay for that Monster drink. Why do I have migraines? Why do I have this? Why do I have that? It's almost all like diet related. Are you going to go to hell? No, but you might go to heaven a lot sooner than you should. You know? Why? Because you're just not doing right. Anyways. So that is the story of the theophanies. What?